You walk past someone you've met 3 times. You smile. They look confused. You said hi to the wrong person again. And the worst part is, you have no idea how it keeps happening. This is not a memory problem. It is not rudeness. It is not that you are bad with faces. Something specific is happening inside your brain every time you look at a person who does not look like you. And most people go their entire lives never knowing what it is. You have probably tried to fix this. You focus harder. You pay more attention. You feel embarrassed and promise yourself it will not happen again. Then it happens again. Because the solution everyone tries is aimed at the wrong target entirely. This is called the cross-race effect. Sometimes you will hear it called the other race. Effector own race. Bayes' research, going back over 50 years, replicated across dozens of countries, confirms this is one of the most consistent patterns in human perception. Your brain does not process all faces equally. It never did. And the way it processes faces from racial groups different from your own is fundamentally different from how it processes faces that look like yours. Here is how it actually works inside your head. From the time you were an infant, your brain started building a face recognition system based on the faces you saw most. If you grew up surrounded by people who shared your racial background, your brain got thousands of hours of practice reading subtle differences in those faces. The slight curve of a brow, the exact spacing between the eyes, the way a jawline shifts when someone is about to smile. Your brain learned to read those micro details automatically, without effort, because it had so much data to work from. 4 faces from groups you had less exposure to, your brain took a shortcut. It learned the broad category instead of the fine details. It learned enough to recognize the group, not enough to reliably tell individuals apart. You are not seeing those faces less. You are processing them differently. Think about the last work meeting where you were introduced to several new people at once. If most of them shared a racial background different from yours, you probably remembered 2 or 3 clearly and the rest blurred together. Meanwhile, someone in that same room from a different background than you walked out remembering you perfectly, but struggling to separate 2 of your colleagues who you could easily tell apart. Neither of you was trying harder or less hard. Your brains were just working from different databases. Now, take it into a social situation. You are at a party and someone waves at you across the room. Your brain does a quick scan, finds a rough match, and you wave back confidently. Then they get closer, and you realize you have never met this person in your life. The awkward laugh. You do to cover it, the way you say sorry. I thought you were someone else, while your face goes red. That is, your brain's pattern matching system misfiring, because it was working with low resolution data. And here's what nobody tells you. About this, the effect gets stronger under pressure. When you are tired, distracted, or stressed, your brain relies even more heavily on broad categories and skips the fine detail work. The situations where you most need accurate face recognition are often the exact situations where the bias hits hardest. Most people who learn about this bias think the fix is obvious. Just pay more attention. Be more conscious of it. Try harder to see people as individuals. That sounds reasonable. But it is like being told to fix blurry vision by squinting more. The problem is not effort. The problem is training data. Paying more attention during a single interaction does not rebuild the perceptual system your brain spent years developing. You cannot consciously override a pattern that runs below conscious thought. People who work in security, law enforcement, and medicine have tried this, and the research is clear. Good intentions without structural change produce almost no improvement. And this is where the real damage shows up, because the cross-race effect does not stay contained to awkward social moments. It feeds into something much larger. When you struggle to differentiate faces from a particular group, your brain fills in the gaps with whatever category level information it has. Stereotypes become load-bearing structures. Your brain is not being malicious. It is being efficient with incomplete data, but efficiency built on bad data produces consistently bad outputs. You miss the individual and see the category instead. You respond to the category, and the person in front of you never gets to be fully seen. That cycle is quiet. It does not feel like bias. It feels like normal perception. And that's exactly why most advice about this fails. People frame it as a values problem. They tell you to care more, to check your assumptions, to be more aware. Those things matter. But the root is perceptual, not moral. Your brain literally has less to work with. Here is what actually changes things. Contact alone is not enough. Studies on desegregated schools and workplaces showed that just being around people from different backgrounds did not reliably reduce the effect. What matters is individuating contact. Specific, repeated, meaningful interaction where you learn someone as a person, not as a representative of a group. You need enough data points that your brain starts building a real model instead of relying on the category. This is why people who grew up in genuinely diverse environments show smaller cross-race effects, not because they are better people, because their brains had more varied training data from an early age. The system works exactly as designed. The design just reflects the world it was built in. So the next time you walk past someone you have met, and your brain draws a blank, you are not experiencing a moral failure. You are experiencing the output of a perceptual system that was trained on limited data and is doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is not who you are. The problem is what your brain had to work with. That distinction matters more than it sounds, because if you think you are the problem, you try to fix yourself. If you understand it is your brain's training, you start putting yourself in situations that actually change the data. You started this video probably thinking this was about other people getting faces wrong. Now you know your own brain does this too, in specific and predictable ways, for reasons that have nothing to do with whether you are a good person. That is not a small shift. Most people defend against this information. You stayed with it. That is where it actually starts to change. Watch this next video to learn the bias that makes you trust certain people instantly and distrust others for no reason you can name.